cases result in a conviction. Tomorrow night, here on Channel 5, 9 women and 1 man tell their stories of how they were attacked, whether their attacker was ever prosecuted or even convicted, and how the whole experience has affected their lives. Here's a clip.
Rape isn't one night. It isn't the event. It's afterwards. Sorry.
It's a difficult watch. Earlier, I was joined in the studio by the programme's maker, Emma Wakefield, as well as one of the women who appears in it. Emily Jacob was attacked by a man she went on a date with after meeting him on a dating site online. I began by asking Emily what happened.
We were drinking. I told him that I wasn't interested in it going further, that I was having a nice time, but that I wasn't interested in taking it further with him. And I actually don't remember anything between that break, which was between the starter and the main course, until I woke up in my house, in my flat, with him on top of me. So, yeah.
Obvious what had happened. So then what happened next with the authorities and the reaction to it? It wasn't...
So initially I wasn't going to report it. I felt that because I'd been drinking that no one would believe me. And I felt like it was going to just be a waste of time and too hard. I decided to report it because I saw him on other online dating sites and realised that he could be doing it to other women too. So I went to the police about a month later and reported it. I felt that they took it quite seriously, and I did my interview statements, etc., in the same day, which is quite rare, actually. Sometime later, they found him and arrested him, and sometime after that, the police came and told me that the CPS had decided not to prosecute.
How did you feel at that point?
At that point, I felt that, because I'd felt quite hopeful because the police had believed me, I'd felt that there was hope. I felt, when they said initially that they couldn't prosecute, I felt a little bit like that hope had been taken away, but I kind of just let myself go back to the idea of, well, I never thought anything was going to happen anyway. It was some time after that I found out what the reasons, what the CPS had decided not to prosecute were, and that's when I felt absolutely kicked down into the gutter.
One of them was the time it took for you to report
One of them was the time it had taken to report it. And that's just staggering to me because it's really rare for somebody to actually report it straight away. We want to deny it's happened. Our brain is trying to process what has occurred. And we don't want to name it rape. We don't want to have to say out loud what's happened. And so the fact that that was one of the reasons just was totally staggering.
Emma, Emily's experience is not unusual, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. As you know, there are 85,000 women and 12,000 men raped in England and Wales alone every year. Mm-hmm. And in making this film, you've decided to tell the stories of several of them.
Yes, we did.
Why?
9 months ago when we started making the film, the whole Weinstein scandal, the parliamentary scandal hadn't happened, but it's a subject that is incredibly important, but it isn't talked about in a very personal way. And what we wanted to explore was the impact and the aftermath of rape, what it feels like for those people, what happened to them, and how they dealt with it in those months afterwards, from the legal side, but more importantly from the personal, emotional, and human side, what it feels like to be in that situation. And what we never anticipated, getting those 10 people to tell their stories, were the echoes against the stories. And when we showed all the contributors the film, when we'd edited it, they universally said, I thought I was the only one. I thought I was the only one who was frightened that nobody would believe me, as Emily has just described. Emily's not alone. Many of the other people in the film thought that. They felt a sort of crushing shame, which of course is a terrible thing and shouldn't be there to feel, but nonetheless that's how they felt. And so understanding those kind of things was a really extraordinary part of making the film.
You mentioned those scandals. I should say at this point, Harvey Weinstein denies the allegations that have been put to him. But back to the story and the people you've spoken to.
Yeah.
Clearly, every situation is unique, is different.
Yeah.
But let's talk about those common threads.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to people before who've been survivors of being raped, and the dissatisfaction at the authorities for dealing with it seems to be one of those common threads.
We have a really real mix of stories in the film. So actually, we have people who didn't report at all, which is very common. They just didn't think they would be believed. They didn't want to face having to tell that story, almost not to acknowledge that it's happened. The acknowledgement was so horrible that they didn't want to do it. There were people who reported and then the cases were dropped due to lack of evidence. People like Emily who reported and it went through to another stage and then was dropped. So we have every kind of stage represented in the film, and the impact of that on their lives is writ very large, and they articulate very clearly what it felt like. Emily talked about, feeling that kick in your stomach when you're told that actually it's not going further, because it is a kind of denial to yourself of what happened.
Actually, Emily, I spoke to another woman fairly recently who's bringing a private prosecution against someone she says raped her because she wasn't satisfied with the way the Crown Prosecution Service went about it. Of course, we heard their response to that about having looked at the evidence and felt they couldn't do anything. But by talking about this, and the other people in the film talking about this, do you think there is a move towards changing things now?
Yeah, I really do. I think that with what we're starting to do by having myself and the other Emily who you're referencing speak out and others is break the silence. There is such a taboo and a stigma about being raped when there shouldn't be. The shame should be on the rapist. But we often feel that we are going to be judged even before we've even said it, and we feel like we'd be going around with raped printed on our forehead,
as if it's your fault,
as though it's our fault somehow. As that it took me a lot of work to forgive myself for having gone out and been drinking. And I think that as we're now starting to have more people come out and say me too, we're breaking those barriers down and helping people to see that they don't need to be so isolated. One of the biggest indicators of recovery from rape is the strength of your community and the feeling that you have that support around you. And I think that now we're starting to see, what we'll see is the change with people saying me too, is that we start to see that this community and the support is out there and we don't need to be so isolated.
Thank you both so much for talking to me about the film, and good luck with it.
Thank you.
And if you want to see the documentary in full that we were talking about, it's called Raped, My Story. It's on Channel 5 here tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Straight afterwards, there'll be a discussion on the issues raised in it, as well as some of the wider issues surrounding abuse and harassment. That's called Me Too, the debate. And if you've been affected by any of the issues you've been hearing about this evening, the information on where you can get advice is on our website, channel5.com/mystory.